All right, welcome to Talking Shop. We got a great one today. The parable of the rich fool, it's usually called. Luke chapter 12, 13 through 21. Kind of difficult to pick a more apt parable to preach to our people in the first world, as we like to say.
Prophetic, dare we say?
Yeah. Lots of good stuff here. Lots to preach on. I think lots of challenges to preach. And so, actually, on that note, if you are preaching this text, leave some comments below on how you might focus it in your situation, your congregation. That kind of discussion is always helpful for everybody. But take some time to like and subscribe, and let's get after it.
Spit out my Lord in every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
All right, Luke
Perfect.
chapter 12, 13 through 21. 13 to 20. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me."
I think that's an interesting start because Jesus is like, who made me arbiter? But when Mary and Martha, a few chapters earlier in Luke, when Martha brings that issue, Jesus inserts himself into that little contention. He's like,
Yeah.
I will arbitrate this one
Right.
because this is really important what Mary has chosen, and I'll say as much.
Yeah.
It's a greater.
a
But
good
here,
portion.
it's like,
He's really stuck on Mary and Martha.
He keeps bringing it up.
He does.
Like week after week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know
but
what
this one
happened.
is like, do you really
It's
want me
okay,
to
Mike.
get
You can sit at the feet of our Lord. It's fine.
You can have the good portion. Mike.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you're right. He
Yeah.
doesn't. He comes back with that, right? It's strange kind of language. Just man who made me a judge or arbiter over you. Because the guy is coming to him obviously because he is appealing to him as some sort of authority. He has some right, some standing.
Yeah, almost Solomon, right? Right.
Yeah,
This is
it feels
this
that way.
Draws me back
Right.
to Solomon's wisdom and
This is my baby. No, it's my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cut it in half.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because that is the Old Testament of Solomon.
Is
Yeah.
it really?
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Oh, Ecclesiastes.
yeah.
Yeah. Not the story of the
Right.
dividing of the baby.
No, not
Yeah,
that.
because
all
it's not. Yeah, because it's not about making the decision. It's
Yeah.
about the value of your stuffs,
Yeah.
right? And he leads right into this, and obviously this is the thrust of it. Take care and be on your guard against what?
Greed, man.
Covetousness.
Yeah.
Not greed so much. I mean, greed, yes, but really
Yeah.
covetousness, right?
Yeah.
You have something that I think should be mine.
Yeah.
That's what covetousness is. Greed is just I want as much as I can possibly get.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
going by the ESV, all kinds of greed.
Ah,
That's what they have there.
so
But yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So this coveting, this desire, these kind of things. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions.
no, it doesn't.
We're comparing ESVs here. Sorry.
I got that.
You can just go on and do what
I
you
knew
want to
that.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that they didn't care to inform the pharaohs of, who were buried with all their possessions, as if.
Well, you need all that stuff in the next life, yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I would say preaching this text, in a sense, this is like shooting fish in a barrel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
This is, in many ways, the idolatry of our age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
it is. Especially America.
We are consumerism dominates absolutely everything. I mean, look at your church's webpage. Look at the way like consumerism is the model
Yeah.
in which
Yeah.
everything functions, and it's all filtered through it.
Yeah.
Stats, the way things are organized, the way the info is presented. It's
Yeah.
all about
Yeah.
consumerism.
Yeah. We want to appeal to you.
Yeah.
to make you think you're missing out on something, and you need
exactly
to,
right. Yeah.
you need to have what
Takes
we got.
over Christmas, wants to take over with little hopping bunnies, Easter even.
So you're saying this text is saying that the poster that I had on my wall growing up of Garfield standing in front of a mansion next to a Lamborghini with a hot air balloon overhead that says "He who dies with most toys wins."
Thou fool.
Not so much. Yeah. All right. Well,
Right.
let's see if that's right. I don't think that's right yet.
So, so be on guard against this, because this is not what life consists of.
Yeah.
And actually, I think here's something, we've talked about this before, but something as a preacher, you can bring, because let's do it this way. As a parish pastor, you're not just like a hired gun preaching. Like you live in the lives of your people. You know them, right?
Shepherding them.
And the greatest lessons I've learned about this very thing here comes from those people when they're nearing death. And you sit there and you're talking with them, everything in their health has deteriorated, their material gains are gone, and they're reflective.
Yeah.
Like I think as a pastor, you have a responsibility to, in a sense, bring that message to your people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you could almost do it you'd have to be careful, but you could do it personally. Like, you guys remember so-and-so? Let me tell you about one of the visits I had with her, where you're sitting there at her bedside and she's talking about what life is like when these other things are stripped away.
Right.
What she's holding on to.
Right.
Right, as that core. Because that's going to change things, right?
Yeah.
That when people get older, they see that. The abundance of the stuff I had actually now doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah.
No.
And you can even use, there's still some, they talk about the competition and everything in it, but you can still use some of America's robber barons for this.
Okay.
Right? They amass this great wealth, and at the
Okay.
end of the day, they're like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I need to give it all away.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
So
he tells them a parable. Great parable.
Yeah.
Great one. Preach on the land of a rich man produced a lot of good stuff, right? And he has a lot of conversations with himself.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Thinks to himself, says, "Self, what do I do? Hey, what's his problem?"
Very
He's
contemplative.
kind of preoccupied with me, myself, and I.
Yeah. What's the
But what's his problem?
Curvata Sensei? He's got too much stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
He doesn't have anywhere to store all his stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to show this on, I think it's a George Carlin skit,
Oh,
where he
okay.
talks
Yeah,
about
probably
you buy a home and you fill it with your stuff. He doesn't use that word. And then you fill it,
Yes.
and then you get like a storage unit where you put your stuff,
extra
and he's
stuff,
like,
yeah.
and you go and you visit your other stuff sometimes, and he's like, and it's just because you're all amassing stuff.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what's happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't have enough room for my crop.
Yeah.
Right?
it doesn't
To the
dawn
huge
on him
crop.
to go across town to the poor place and give his over and abundance away
Sure,
to them.
no, yeah.
Well, maybe it does dawn on him, but he discounts that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
Exit out.
Yeah. So he actually goes so far as, it's not that he doesn't have barns. You should highlight that too.
Right, yeah.
They're just not big enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So we tear them down. Now, I would also caution against this, because this happens politically in our world, where you attack the rich.
Yeah.
Right.
Simply because they're like you don't want to create wealth envy in a sermon on this.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
that's not
that's
the point.
true.
That's actually going back to coveting, which is the issue.
Yeah, right.
Right. Of longing for us.
Yeah.
That's not the point. But the point is,
No.
here's somebody that's so turned in on himself,
Yeah.
he can't see any
Right.
greater
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So all he's concerned about is amassing his next great kind of goal,
Yeah.
life savings.
And I
whatever.
think Dave Ramsey has the best line towards the rich, that we often look at somebody else who has more than we do and go, well, if I had that much, I would.
Yeah.
And he says, no, you wouldn't. You don't have that stuff. You don't know what you would do when you have that
Only
stuff.
if you're
right?
doing it
So-
now. And that little widow's mite, she gave out of
for what
poverty. Or
If you don't have a mindset, if you only have a mindset to get when you have little stuff, you're gonna also have a mindset to get when you have big stuff.
Yeah.
So, but
So he tears down his barns, builds bigger ones to store all his stuff, and has a conversation again with himself. This time with his own
with
soul.
his very inner self. His
says,
psyche.
"Soul, you have ample goods." And this kind of harkens to the Ecclesiastes: "Eat, drink, and be merry."
Yes.
Right? Just relax. You've done it. You've stored up all your good stuff.
Yeah. So now you don't have to do anything else for the rest of your life. You can just enjoy what you got.
And, let's be honest. In a way, he's not wrong.
Oh, man. We all kind of long for that day, don't we? Isn't that what retirement is? I've worked hard. I've got all of this stuff. I got this nest egg. Right. Now I can just enjoy the life that I have worked for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then God shows up.
Yeah.
And doesn't say nice things.
Yeah.
Calls him a fool.
Hate it when God shows up.
This very night, your soul is required of you. And what's going to happen with all your big barns full of stuff?
Yeah.
And when we were translating this, I immediately thought of Night Before Christmas, the Ebenezer Scrooge
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Running through all the Christmas things, where he when it's the Ghost of the Christmas Future, before he sees the terrifying grave and all that stuff, he sees them selling off his bedclothes and things like that, and they're mocking him, and he had all this stuff, right? These nice linens and things, and they're just like hawking it, the grubs that he walked over now,
discounting it as nothing.
Yeah. And they're kind of good. So so what's going to happen? All this, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the I guess the punchline, if you will, of the parable, right? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Now, parsing that out, applying that is the goal of this sermon if you're preaching this text.
Right.
Well, I mean, what's he getting at here?
Well, temporary things versus eternal things. God is eternal.
Yeah.
What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his suke, his soul?
Soul, yep.
And we should be storing up treasure in heaven for eternal life, which is really by way of producing the fruit of the Spirit in this life, and who you invest in, God's eternal word, and those who need to hear it.
There you go. There's your sermon, Matt.
I'll drink to that.
So I think it's a great call, right? To consider what we're doing with our time, and what we're focusing on, and where, I think a lot of underlying in this parable are issues of idolatry.
Sure.
Right, where you find, when I was at the seminary, Dr. Koch would always hammer into us. Whatever it is you find your identity, security, and meaning in, that's your God.
That's your God.
And boy, our personal wealth, or our retirement plans, or all these kind of things, those are things we find identity, security, and meaning in over and over again, and we're encouraged to, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And so that there's a kind of call to say, maybe that's actually not it.
Right.
And that's okay, and that you're free to live for other things besides those things, right? And there's a joy in that, and so, and I think you kind of do that. Like there's a lot of ways you could do a sermon like this. You could kind of create your own sort of parable of you could have a guy who's living, opposite this guy here, who is generous and kind.
Yes.
And maybe doesn't have much to rub together,
Right.
And but he too can eat, drink, and be merry.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because eternity is actually already solved for him.
Yes. Amen.
Right. And so you have that confidence to be able to live, in a sense, a little reckless.
Yeah, right. And free
You know?
from those earthly attachments. Like Luther, my favorite hymn is Mighty Fortress.
Yeah.
The one translation goes, "Let goods and kindred go." And what's the next line?
And mortal life also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's let's not forget that the one that we aspire to, the one that we celebrate, the one that we come before and receive the gifts are, according to Paul in Philippians 2, the one who emptied himself.
Yes.
Right? Who gave up everything.
Yeah.
Who counted it all as nothing. And then that's verse 7, verse 9. Therefore God has highly exalted him and bestowed upon him the name that is above every other name. So
challenging parable, incredibly applicable to modern day Christianity.
Yeah.
I mean, probably always was for sure, but incredibly so today.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think if this is coming up, it's kind of hard not to preach it, or at least to focus on it somewhat.
Right.
It's something that needs to be said. It's that challenge of I think it was Williman has a book about how to preach to people who have everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's essentially what we're doing in North America.
in American culture.
By and large, unless there's some places where that's not the case, but for most of us, that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not to belittle them,
Right.
but that is their particular lot in life, and their idolatry that will pull them away from the word, and that you got to be willing to slaughter those sacred cows at times. And this is a good opportunity to do it.
And not just for America. A few years back, I heard a report talking about people's contentment in life, and it was one of the Scandinavian countries where they described themselves as having the highest standard of living, but they also had the highest rate of suicide. In other words, if all those things that increase your standard of living don't make you happy or doesn't give meaning to your life, then where else can you
Where
go?
else you going?
Nowhere. If this isn't going to do the trick, it's like Ecclesiastes, meaningless.
Yeah.
It's all a chasing after the wind.
Yep.
All right. Take a moment to like and subscribe. It's always appreciated. Join in the conversation as well. Check out craftofpreaching.com. There'll be some articles there on this text and the others. And God bless your preaching.